So please, everyone, join me in welcoming our new friend, Ginger Duan, and we'll start her session.
Hey everyone, so my name is Ginger. I'm here for stand for my group, speak for my group, Chinese Youth Stand for Tibet. I am the founder of this organization, and we have around 5 to 10 people, and we have been founded for about 2 years and a half. So today I want to talk a little bit about Chinese youth on the Tibet class. And I will give a brief talk about who we are, who I am, why we stand for Tibet, and what do I think we should do together. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Chinese. I'm not Taiwan Hong Kong so I'm not from Hong Kong or Taiwan. I'm from mainland China. I was born and raised in China. Some of my hometown is in this part of China called Yunnan. It's kind of very diverse, ethnic diverse area. It's pretty a border area between China and Tibet, and we have very diverse ethnic. So when I was growing up with all kinds of ethnic. My friends, classmates. So I kind of more from those kind of environment. I understand different people have different mindset and different ethnic group have different region something. So I think that's kind of the things I feel when I was young, especially when I go to college near Shanghai. I start to think, I'm kind of different than my Chinese friends, So that's kind of the base, the root. I kind of I think different than the typical Chinese from Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou. So my journey with Tibet started from when I was teach in Tibet. I was taught in Tibet briefly in 2018 to 2019. I'm not even speak political science, something like that. I was a pure science student. I was a very kind of a technology person. So I started my small business when I was super young about computer. So in that times I was a computer teacher working in Jigme school in Golok, Amdo. It's kind of in east part of Tibet. So by the time I was not the teacher, teaching students about computer, I was the IT person who resolved all the IT problem for all the staff member and students. So I have my own office hour, and the student will grab their computer or any digital devices, come to my office. So I had the privilege to kind of live in Tibet for a short time, and I had privilege to work in this job, and it gave me opportunity to have a lot of deep talk with a lot of teachers. Other than if I travel around Tibet, I would not have those experiences. I have first-hand experience about people, how we pass the checking point, and how Chinese government trying to stop us to teach everything in Tibetan in classroom. So I had a lot of. When I was super young, this was my second job after graduate from college. So I had the first time experience how Chinese government govern whole Tibet, and how Tibetan people are suffering under the Chinese rule. So by the time I was kind of the witness, and I observed what happens. Chinese government always Tibetans and Han Chinese people, we are one family. But they will put this banner in the tank to put on the street to suppressing, to control to intimidate Tibetan people. So I see those things in my mind. I was so confused in that times. So when I ask the question, like people always ask me, hey, why do you support Tibet? I also ask myself, I was like, why I want to support Tibet? Because I feel something is not right. Sometimes I cannot really, I don't really have words to explain that, but I myself have a very strong motivation to know the truth, to know what happened in Tibet. So, but when I was in Tibet, the information is very limited. Everybody, if you know about China, you have to talk about like Great Firewall. We have very strong censorship, especially about Tibet. Basically, if I want to search anything about Tibet in Chinese, like Chinese inside internet, there's not much information. It's kind of like a information vacuum. It's like all the information available for me. It's like I don't think it's like makes sense. I do have very strong, like I said, I do have very strong motivation to know the truth, but I just cannot find a great resource. Even I was a computer teacher, I can use VPN to use Google, but I still feel it's very not enough like information available for us. And I started to talk with my friend around me who like work in Tibet or work in the like different ethnic area to talk about what's going on in Tibet. I feel like there's so many rumors, around the Chinese speaking world. When you want to know some like actual thing, it's so hard to find the solid like a fact check. There's no such things in Chinese internet. And if you want to know the policy, the ethnic policy in China, there's all propaganda. Like the picture you can see, it's like everybody, like 56 ethnic group people. They are one big family. Everybody should stay in solidarity, and they should working together to build a good country. It's something like that. But what I see in Tibet is like totally not. It's opposite. So I was like keep very confused in that time, and also I got like a stop in the checking point. My phone got searched from the local police officer because sometimes I love taking a lot of photos. So sometimes I taking photo like this, and like local officer might think I'm suspicious, so like they check my phone and also ask me who I am. In that times I'm so scared, I was so young. I was only 23 years old, and I just try all my best to speak Mandarin to them and very loudly to prove I'm not a local Tibetan and I'm not. I don't want to do anything like weird. I realized I have kind of like the privilege back then. So those kind of like information is like shape my mind, and even I'm very kind of like IT background person, but I really want to do something in the future. When I come to US, I still have something. I have a dream in my mind, like I need to do something for Tibetan, for help the Tibetan in this experience. And so we start to, I start to making some social media posts. I start to writing a lot of kind of like knowledge posts. As everybody know, like Gyalo Thondup, he was such a great and important person among like a Sino-Tibetan tradition. So when he passed away, we write an article. In that time, there's no much like good article about him in Chinese, So we start to write the first article. We call those kind of article called the anchor report. because when you are in the information ocean, you want to find something you cannot find. When we have the first information point, like a data point, we call them like an anchor. We put one anchor in, and we hope we can generate more people start to talk about like Tibet issue and start talking about Gyalo Thondup, his like history, what he did, and what can be better in Chinese-speaking world. The person who collaborated with me in this article, actually she's the main author of this article. Yadi has been arrested last summer. It was pretty devastating for us because we were very unprofessional activists in the past. We totally not prepared that she's going to face those crucial punishment. She was our editor. She worked for us for about 1 year and a half. And she was a college student from France. She went back to China for her graduation. She graduated from France. So she went back China to see her friends, to see her parents, and also for her 22 years old birthday. But very unfortunately, she's being arrested and still in custody right now. And the charge against to her, the Chinese government, they love use this word separatism to label her, you know. But we think this kind of like the charge against us, against her, is very absurd. Because a lot of people, when we do those kind of work, a lot of people ask us, hey, do you support Tibetan independence? Sorry, I have some typo here. Do you support Tibet's independence or middle-way approach? And we think for us, we don't really have any proposition because we are all Chinese back then. Like most of us, we are Chinese, like most Chinese. So we think if you ask me, hey, do you support Tibet independence? It's like if I'm not a US citizen, you ask me, hey, do you support California independence? I think that's just not a problem for us. We think that's the problem for Tibetan people. We also think either way, like Tibetan independence, like Rangzen, or middle way approach, it's I don't think like none of them Chinese people, like Chinese government will agree with you. They don't accept anyone. You know, anyone who speaks for Tibet, even Gyaltsen, she's a very, very moderate Buddhist, and she never speaks anything about Tibetan independence. She got charged by the separatism. So we are kind of, you know, so for our group of people, we are kind of confused why Tibetan people keep fighting for like which way you want to go. Because we think for right now at this stage, there's so much other things we need to worry. Like I say, there's so many rumors in Chinese internet, and even outside, you know, outside the Chinese community, a lot of people like believe His Holiness is some like slavery owner, you know. So we think right now we want to introduce to more Tibetans know your enemy more, because Chinese, they are the enemy. They make all the mess, you know. They are, but they should be the problem solver. They should solve this problem. We have a word in Chinese called 解铃还须系铃人. It literally means if you make a mess, you should going to clean up yourself, you know. So we think in the future, like in Tibetan's future, it's pretty much on Chinese hands. If we don't do anything right now in Chinese-speaking world, it's just going to be worse. So we feel those kind of like urgency. So we start to mobilize ourselves. So you can see our group member. This is the photo we took in our California, in our North California Tibetan Associate Community Center, we have an event to help all the Tibetans to write the postcard, and we help them to fill the address in Chinese, and we help them to ship the postcard to the political prisoner inside Tibet. And you can see all our members. We are pretty diverse. We have Tibetan people joining me. We have some like Chinese people, but he was born and raised in Tibet. And we have some previous he was a political prisoner back then in our group, and we also have journalists she's a Hong Kongese in our group. So we are pretty diverse. But one thing we can kind of share is we all use Chinese language as a tool to do our advocacy, and we think that's very important. When I introduced to other people and said, hey, I'm Chinese, you stand for Tibet, and now say, hey, I'm Chinese, as an identity, you stand for Tibet. We are talking about, we are using Chinese, speaking youth, we are Chinese speaking youth, and we want to support Tibet. And Chinese as a language is our equivalent to help Tibetans. So the things we really want to do is we want to fill the information gap between Han chauvinism, like Han Chinese people, and the Tibetan overseas, and the Tibetan love, free Tibet, Tibetan freedom movement. We want to kind of serve as a bridge builder. And also I want to share, I actually know a lot Tibetan people, they maybe their parents lost their identity or language. There are so many Tibetans that inside Tibet, they lost their language. They don't speak Tibetan anymore, but they love to know about Tibet. So they try to like me when I was in Tibet. I try to search everything I can in internet. They are doing the same things. They love our platform because they have those kind of identity crisis. Those things really drive them to eagerly know what is Tibet, what's going on about Tibetan peoples overseas, what are they doing, and we really want to be an information bridge to tell them what's going on. So we start our Sino-Tibetan youth conversation in different schools. In Stanford University, we have been ones. In our Tibetan community center, we have ones. We have very interesting experience. Like you say, when we made everyone to find your hometown, your Paris, on the map. Chinese people they use purple, and Tibetan people they use green, and we can visually see how close we are. So in that times we have a very meaningful conclusion that we say our other people come and go, but we will always be the neighbor. So as a neighbor, we have to figure out one day, we have to figure out what are we going to do, what are we going to build our future. And I think in the past, we think there is a lot of approach and strategy. In the past, it's very successful. I think the international campaign, Tibetan people to EU, to UN, to US is very successful. Tibetan flag is in Geneva, in DC, but they kind of leave the people who under China rules behind, and we think that's the kind of things we can do in the future. We should kind of have a strategic reorientation. Tibetan people should think about, we think Tibetan people should think about to kind of convert more Chinese people to join your campaign. Right now, it's kind of Tibetan people yell China lie, people die, or use Tibetan words anyway. But Chinese people can understand, the most majority Chinese, they don't speak Tibetan. They are not good at the Chinese, so they don't speak the language you're delivering. So they cannot understand. They said, oh, I cannot understand. whoever to have Tibetan flag, you are all Tibetan independence supporter. Right now it's like this. And so in the future, I think what we can do is we want to advocate for Tibet in Chinese-speaking world. And we, in our platform, we purposely only use simplified Chinese. So I think to keep simplified Chinese is very important for us and also for our audience. And we want to really use the word and language that Chinese people understand to advocate for Tibet. We start to write those kind of like debunking posts. You can see the photo. This is kind of like propaganda, like Chinese propaganda machine make up to make everyone believe that in the past, every Tibetan people live in the slavery system, and the Chinese army, they call the Ginger Mummy, was the savior. I think Tibetan people all treat His Holiness as a Buddha, right? But in Chinese narrative, they said, "Oh, I'm the Buddha because I saved the Tibetans. So Tibetan people treat me as Buddha." And all other Chinese, like outside Tibet, they deeply trust this lie. And so we start to writing the debunking posts about those lies. So we start our own media. We have like different social media platforms to do that. So when like average Chinese people think about His Holiness, in their mind they think His Holiness is a separatist, or they think in Chinese propaganda they think His Holiness is the biggest slavery owner. So those things, I think it's like we should like concern more. And we should really deal with it, because Chinese propaganda machine, they literally start a cultural war, and we have to fight it back in Chinese way, in Chinese language way. Otherwise, we just leave that wall as blanket, as empty. It's a shame, and also it's not helpful. So we start to do a lot of independent investigate. I start to do some like a seminar to teach Chinese people about Tibetan people's democracy. And I use a slogan. It's very sharp and very helpful to make Chinese people understand in seconds. I said the people who you think is slavery can vote now, because I think a lot of Chinese people, they eager democracy, but they still think Tibetan people are very backhanded. They are very super religion. They are all slavery back then, but now they think, oh, Tibetan people, they can vote now. Oh, let me read about Tibetan people's democracy, how that works. Like in just one minute, the whole narrative that CCP built by the propaganda machine, just dismantled by our posts. I think that those are very, very helpful. But we are our organization is very, very small organization. We only have 5 active members right now. We really hope that Tibetan people can use this tool to kind of showcase Chinese people about your democracy work, your democracy story. It's very fascinating, and I think people love it. We use kind of like a machine. It's something like a mail list. We send our post by email, by mail list, and those mail lists can be received inside China. We can across the Great Firewall. Like you see in the picture, we have some reader in Beijing, in Mongolia, and in Hong Kong, in Guangzhou. We even have some audience inside Tibet and Xinjiang. They call it Turkestan. And you can see on the left, our top city of our reader list. Our top city is Lanzhou. It's kind of like a border area between Amdo, Tibet, and China. So it's very interesting, kind of like the demographic of our audience group we serve. We think Tibet, like as our perspective, we think Tibet is the hope of Chinese democracy and should take the lead of our both freedom movement across. And Tibetan is not only Tibetan's hope, is Chinese democracy hope, and should really, you know, sometimes I even ask my Tibetan friends to help our Chinese people to do organizing. Why? Because there are so many, I think Tibetan NGO activists groups is probably the best, is such a role model of every overseas dissidents group against the CCP as our perspective. So I think you guys can use your like organizing, use your organizing strategy and your experience to teach us, to help us. We can do a lot of things together. So that's the things we're trying to fill the bridge right now. So this is kind of so this word I know is kind of too much. People don't want to read words right now nowadays. But this word is some Tibetan people who live inside Tibet asked me to showcase here. They think what Tibetan people overseas should do. I think basically she's trying to tell everyone you should know your enemy. You should know what's going on in Tibet, in China. You should talk to Chinese people, to Chinese students, try to make friends with them, to build people connection with them. You know, try to convince them because they Chinese people, there's a lot. We don't need every Chinese people to support our cause. If we can convince like 10% of Chinese people to support our cause, I think that will be super helpful for our cause, and I think that's pretty much will solve our Tibetan issue in the future. I want to thank you everyone to listen my presentation. I also want to thank you Midway Initiative, the host of today, inviting me to have this talk. Those are two main social media platforms we're using. If you guys want, you guys can scan the QR code to follow us. If you guys want to know our work or collaborate with us, we are very happy to. So please feel free to reach out. I also in the WeChat, I'm also in the WhatsApp group. My name is Ginger Duan, so feel free to shoot me a message. And I think I can leave the rest of the time to the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you so much for my personal friend Ginger Duan, and also I hope she has become all of your friends after this speech. So right now we'll take some Q&A, some questions, and if you have any questions, kindly raise your hands and come to the stage.
Hello. I would like to call you just Ginger, because it's easy to remember if we are going to be friends. So first of all, I would like to thank you for taking Tibetan cause by heart and supporting the Tibetan issue. So my question is, what are the sacrifices are you making in terms of your own safety by supporting the Tibetan issue?
Thank you for your question. I wonder people will ask me about this. So when I was in Tibet, I was super careful. I was very afraid of everything. As I told you, when I was passing the checking point, people search my luggage, search my phone. I was terrified. I was trying to speak, trying to like I can speak a little bit Tibetan back then, you know. But I would just try all my best to speak like a standard Mandarin to prove that I am not Tibetan. So I feel guilty about that, but But I think right now, the things I'm doing right now, I live in the US, I don't feel like super anxious about my safety. Either I know transnational repression exists, but I think for my own safety, I'm not that worried. After I decide I'm going to dedicate my life in Tibet cause, I make the decision that I'm not going back to China, so I'm living in exile. So I will not go into China, or I will not take the Chinese flight in the future. So I'm not that worried about that. Both of my parents, they're still living inside China. Sometimes I worry about them. I think my parents, they're not very strongly tied with Chinese government. They're not working for government or official system. So I think Chinese government, they just don't really have a way to stop me or control me. I'm financially independent. So they don't know how to control me. They try to find my mom and try to intimidate my mom in the past. But my mom is a very wise person. She's not very well educated. I think she graduated from junior high. That's it. But I think she's very wise. When the Chinese police find my mom said, "Oh, what bad things she have done?" The police told my mom that she wrote a lot of articles against our government, against our ethnic policy. My mom said, "Oh, what kind of article? Can you share with me? I want to read." And those police officers were shocked, and they said, "Oh, I don't even read those articles. How can you read that?" My mom was like, "Oh, if you didn't read the article, how do you know that's bad?" So, I think that's because my mom trusts me. She knows I'm doing some great things, even she don't really know what I'm doing. But she just trusts me, and I trust her. She can protect herself. I think that's kind of I planned this beforehand. Before I went through all this activism, I think I was prepared, and I started doing this activism and my writing. And thank you. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you, Ginger Duan, for your insightful talks about the perspective of the Chinese youth. And I have 3 questions. My first question is, how do young people in China generally view the Tibet issue today? And my second question is, do Chinese youth have enough access to different perspectives on Tibet, including Tibetan voices? And my third question will be, how can Tibetan and Chinese youth engage in meaningful conversations despite political differences?
Thank you for your question. I think that's very important for our future work, because we want to start more Sino-Tibetan Youth Dialogue in many universities. So the first question is how Chinese youth think about Tibet, right? I think most of the majority Chinese students, they don't really have any idea about what's going on in Tibet, or I have hosted Sino-Tibetan Dialogue before. In that dialogue, we realized that every Tibetan participant, they have words. They have the cultural genocide, they have the middle way approach, or they have the self-determination. They have those words in their mind, so they can they can speak what they are thinking. But in Chinese student mind, it's feel like it's empty when they talk about Tibet. The only thing they know is is Chinese propaganda, but they feel like that's not true, but I don't really have the answer, So I think most majority Chinese students is like that, but they have education overseas, so they have opportunities to study about a lot of about communism. They have studied about what's happening in South Africa before, what's happening in Palestine before. So they have kind of like the model. So when you talk about the Tibet and Chinese issue, you use those kind of model. I think it's very helpful. And they don't really have good information and access, even outside of China. Because I think most website, like Tibetan website, built by Tibetan people overseas, and I don't know what's happening. Sorry. They built by like Tibetan people overseas, and most of the majority of them they don't really use Chinese that well. I know some older generation Tibetan they speak good Chinese, but I have to say the way they talk like Chinese, it's kind of like older way. And which those kind of like language are not really convincing to young generation Chinese. So we think we like our group, for a long time we feel like we are not doing translate work. We feel like we are cultural interpreter. The barrier is not only about language. Sometimes the barrier is about culture. So we think we can do those kind of interpreter things, and we want to do that more in the future. And how to have Chinese and Tibetan youth have a minimal conversation. I think that's very important. But I think it's also very hard because most majority Chinese students. Or Chinese as a whole, they don't really care about Tibet, and they think Tibetan people is not that important. It's the things they can put on the side, and they worry about their trade, their own job. They don't really have a strong opinion. I think in the past, the people have strong opinion that maybe Tibet is part of China also, but now they just feel like, maybe no, but they don't know what's that cause related with them. I think for most of the majority of Chinese. I think if they have been to Tibet for travel, and if they live near to Tibet like me, or they are Buddhists like Tara Yadi, I think things will be different. So I think those group of people is the group of people you want to approach first and start your activist from them. I think that's kind of like the cutting point you want to start on. And thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, just now we heard that many Chinese youth, they support Tibetan cause. And though you are also Chinese, you still support very strong to Tibetan. And I want to ask you that, are you protective?
Oh, sorry, I understand the question.
Are you with protect?
Somebody help me with me, sorry.
I think the question was, are you safe? Same like this first question.
Thank you so much. So when I first speak for the school I work for, like 2 years ago, Chinese government closed the school I work for inside Tibet. When those happened, the people inside Tibet, my Tibetan friends, the first question they asked me, it's the same question. It's like, where are you? Are you safe? Yeah. Yes, I am safe. I live in California right now, and I have like I used to like full-time working as an IT, I have people live with me, so I think I'm safe enough. And I will not travel like recently, so I'm not that worried about my safety. And I also know the things I'm doing is very important, so I will not try to put myself in any risky position. And thank you for being concerned about this.
So after hearing your speech, I would also like to share a personal experience of mine too, because I studied in China for a while. I finished my 12th grade in Chengdu, and then I had a best friend, a very best girlfriend of mine, which we like share all the secrets. And then one day I tried to, carefully tell her about what happened to Tibet. I was like, you know what? Chinese CCP army actually came and invaded my hometown. And then she was in shock. She was like, what do you mean? Like, we came to liberate you guys. So that was like the point that I knew it was hard. It was gonna be a very hard way to convince the new generation, or just in general, the generations of Chinese people, because they have lived in this kind of propaganda forever. But I feel like this is not where we should give up, because people like you make me regain my hope. As one of there's a quote from my favorite movie where it says that we move forward and forward, not because we can change the world, but because we don't want the world to change us. So although it is a very tough future that we see, but then we see hope. And when we see that hope, we don't want us to be changed. For example, your safety, and also a lot of Tibetan people's safety. We have danger, we have transactional pressure from the Chinese government, but we do not want that to stop us or to fear us from taking the next step towards the future, because at the end of the day, we are fighting for freedom, we're fighting for democracy, we're fighting for the truth. And then I think today it is a chance for us to see that there is actually a chance of collaborating, like connecting each other, where we can both help each other in so many ways. So thank you so much for this meaningful speech. And by the way, if you guys have ever heard about the Raja Lopta, which was closed 2 years ago, right? One last year. So Ginger, she taught in the Raja school, and then when the Raja school was forcibly closed by the CCP government, she actually wrote a lot of articles, many posts online, and that's how I started to know her. So if you guys saw the Instagram page of hers, kindly start following and pay attention, share what she's gonna say. And if you are into this kind of thing, because as she said, this is not a organization that's only for the Chinese people, it's for Chinese-speaking people. So if you know Chinese, or you have any information that feels like should be shared on this post, you have this opportunity to join and to participate and to help us, reclaim the actual truth rather than the CCP propaganda. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ginger. Thank you so much for this meaningful speech. Guys, follow her on Instagram. Thank you. 你有什么最后的发言吗？
Oh, okay. One thing, sorry. I forgot to watch the one thing. I actually wrote that down, but I forgot. So I think so in our group we think like all the Tibetan organization, NGO and CTA, they kind of like I know there's a Chinese liaison in some office, Tibetan office overseas, right? But we think we should have more play like better, like improve their work. We should reclaim this narrative. Chinese people they use the lie and the fear to rule people. But if you claim that fear, it put you in your mind, and you just kind of like obey those government. And I always tell people the fare is your passport, your Chinese passport. If you don't have fare, you don't have Chinese passport, you know. And also you need to reclaim this narrative because they use line. They have their narrative built by line. But His Holiness always say we have the greatest weapon we have is truth, right? But right now, the truth is writing in English. You know, when I was back in Tibet, my English was very poor, and I only speak a little bit Tibetan and Chinese. I don't have access to the truth. So we need to find I know a lot of Tibetans, they don't like Chinese. They don't want to speak Chinese. Even they can speak Chinese, but they feel bad, so they don't want to engage with Chinese. But I think Chinese, if you speak Tibetan at home, but when you're outside, you're ambassador. You know, when you are ambassador, it doesn't matter what language you are using. It's all equipment. You have to use Chinese as an equipment as your weapon to fight for the truth, to fight for freedom. Yeah, so I think that's the kind of like core things I want to share. And for you guys, I know there are so many Tibetan youth doing great work in organizing, in activism. If you guys need to like translate something post in Chinese, or if you want to understand something about what's going on in China inside, feel free to reach us out. We can schedule a call or something. And thank you so much for your time today. And thank you. It's a